You do not bring a propeller aircraft to a jet war. That is the rule, the unbreakable truth, the kind of ironclad logic every commander, every pilot, every strategist believes without question. For decades, the world agreed, speed is life. Jet-age combat demands velocity, altitude, and afterburners. Anything less is suicide. And in Hanoi, in briefing rooms thick with cigarette smoke and absolute confidence, North Vietnamese officers nodded along. They believed the Americans were foolish enough to deploy a relic, a slow, lumbering, single-engine brute whose design came from the last year of World War II. An aircraft built when B-29 still roamed the skies and radar was the new frontier. To them, the old A-1 Skyraider was a joke, rusty, obsolete, a museum piece pretending to be a weapon. And why wouldn't they laugh? Their MiG-17s could hit 700 miles per hour. The Skyraider struggled to reach 322. Their gunners manned thousands, literally thousands, of 12.7 and 14.5 anti-aircraft guns. The Skyraider had aluminum skin and no self-sealing tanks. It should have been an easy kill. Every rule of modern warfare said so. Every analyst agreed. But in 1965, one man in one cockpit would shatter that rule. He would prove that speed is not the only path to survival. That power is not measured in knots. That courage, endurance, and precision, delivered from a rusty airframe, could redefine an entire war. And in doing so, he would force North Vietnam to stop laughing. This is the story of Lt.J.G. Thomas Lou Lounsbury, a Skyraider pilot whose missions into the teeth of the most concentrated anti-aircraft network on Earth rewrote what close air support could be. A man whose aircraft rescued dozens, saved hundreds, and influenced the entire American air strategy. And it begins in the one place no pilot ever wants to be. A downed aviator bleeding on the jungle floor, a radio clutched in his shaking hand, whispering into static, "Is anyone coming for me?" Lou Lounsbury was 24 years old in 1965. California kid, compact build, quiet confidence, known for steady hands and an instinct for precision flying. He wasn't the loudest in the ready room. He wasn't the fastest either. But he had something far more valuable: patience, discipline, a willingness to fly lower, slower, and closer to death than almost anyone else. He joined VA 152, the Wild Aces, a Skyraider squadron deployed aboard USS Oriskany CV-34. His aircraft was the 1H variant, single right R-30 350 engine, 2,700 horsepower. An aircraft capable of carrying 8,000 pounds of ordnance, nearly as much as a WWII B-17 bomber. When he first walked across the carrier deck toward his Skyraider, he expected to feel disappointment. Jet pilots ruled the sky. F-8 Crusaders and F-4 Phantoms roared off the catapults with 14,000 pounds of thrust. They were the glamorous machines, but the Skyraider was not glamorous. It was honest, brutal, a flying anvil with wings. Where jets could stay on station for 15 minutes, the Skyraider could loiter for 3 hours. Where jets needed altitude, the Skyraider thrived at treetop level. Where jets made one high-speed pass, the Skyraider made 12. And in Vietnam, dense jungle, ambush after ambush, men bleeding on the ground, loiter time mattered more than speed. That was the contradiction shaping the early air war. In theory, jets dominated. In reality, close air support demanded something very different. By 1965, American pilots were being shot down at a steady, terrifying pace. North Vietnam had more than 2,500 heavy machine gun positions, plus radar-guided 57, 85, and 100 guns. Every valley hid a threat. Every ridgeline held a trap. To attempt a rescue was madness. To stay on station for hours was suicide. To orbit at low speed over swarming anti-aircraft guns was unthinkable. And yet, that is exactly what the Skyraider was built to do. Lou Lounsbury learned quickly, if you wanted to survive, you did not outrun danger. You outlasted it. You outmaneuvered it. You fought so close to the jungle canopy that gunners could not depress their barrels enough to hit you. This was a different kind of war. A war measured not in dogfights but in minutes of survival for a man on the ground. And on one humid July afternoon in 1965, Lou faced the moment that would define his life. A Navy pilot call sign Canasta 404 had been hit by 37 fire at 4,500 feet. His aircraft tumbled, he ejected. He landed deep inside a valley north of Vinh, one of the most heavily defended sectors in North Vietnam. His beacon sounded faint, erratic, weak, the odds of survival near zero, but to Lou Lounsbury that didn't matter. There was a man down there, alone, bleeding, surrounded, so he tightened his harness, checked his fuel enough for 2.1 hours, rolled the Skyraider toward the coast, and descended into the green furnace of North Vietnam where thousands of guns waited for him. This was the moment he faced the challenge, not a dogfight, not an ambush, but a test of endurance, courage, and absolute precision under fire. You drop into the valley at 2,000 feet, then 1,500, then 1,000. The walls rise on both sides, sheer, green, jagged, a natural killing ground, a place where sound echoes and shadows play tricks, a place where North Vietnamese gunners wait for the moment your silhouette crosses the sky. Lou Lounsbury knows this terrain now. He's flown into it too many times. He knows the static buzz of a survival radio. He knows the difference between a calm voice and one trembling with shock. And he knows what it means when that voice keeps repeating, "Hurry." He pushes the throttle forward. The Skyraider growls. 2,700 horsepower drag the aircraft lower until treetops blur beneath you. The downed aviator is somewhere ahead, rough coordinates only. No smoke, no signal mirror, no movement, just the faint, uncertain beeping of a URC-10 rescue radio, and then the valley erupts. A single 12.7 gun opens first. The deep, rhythmic pounding rises up from the tree line like a hammer against steel. Then another, and another. Within seconds, Lou faces what Skyraider pilots call a wall, a literal curtain of tracer fire building from the jungle floor toward his flight path. He banks left, the tracers follow. He rolls right, still they reach for him. Each round tears past at 3,000 feet per second. Each one can open the Skyraider's aluminum skin like paper. But the Skyraider's advantage is not speed. It is agility, rudder authority, massive wing area, low stall speed. Lou throws the aircraft into a diving turn, skimming the treetops at 240 knots, and every gunner in the valley opens up. There are at least 30, possibly more. It doesn't matter, he presses on. Because somewhere ahead a man is lying on the jungle floor listening to this gunfire, wondering if help will ever arrive. Lou begins his search pattern, tight figure eights, no higher than 800 feet. Every pass brings him into the same envelope of fire. Every circle tightens the trap. But he needs visual contact. He needs eyes on the survivor. On the fourth pass, he finally hears it. "Canasta 404, I hear your engine, I'm here, I'm here." The voice is weak, fading. Lou keys his radio. "Pop smoke if you can, any color." A pause, then a miracle. A thin ribbon of purple smoke threads upward through the canopy, barely visible, half choked by the trees. But it's enough. The Skyraider banks hard. He marks the coordinates. He sees movement, enemy soldiers converging from the north, perhaps a platoon, maybe 30 men closing fast on the survivor. There is no time for jets, no time for helicopters, no time for anything except the Skyraider and whatever Lou can carry. He flips open the arming panel. 6 Mk-82 500-pound bombs, 4 LAU-3 rocket pods, 2 SUU-11A minigun packs, enough to level the hillside. He lines up for a run, 1,500 yards. The tracers start again, thick now, angry, reaching. 1,200 yards, the altimeter reads 400 feet. The valley walls flicker with muzzle flashes. 900 yards, he dampens the stick, tightens the dive. 700 yards, every instinct is screaming, pull up, pull away, this is too low. 500 yards, he releases. 6 bombs fall in a staggered ripple, each tumbling in slow arcs before disappearing into the jungle. The explosions come a heartbeat later, rolling shockwaves that lift entire sections of canopy into the air. Dirt and leaves blast upward, the ground shakes. The enemy platoon scatters, and Lou goes lower. He arms the rockets, rolls in again, 1,200 yards. His canopy fills with green. He squeezes the trigger. 48 2.75-inch FFAR rockets streak out in white smoke trails, hammering the tree line. Branches explode, trenches collapse, bodies scatter. Still the guns fire back. The Skyraider absorbs the punishment, holes punching into the wings, sparks snapping across rivets, but the aircraft does not break. Lou pulls up, circles, drops again. This time he uses the miniguns. The twin Su-11 pods spin up to 6,000 rounds per minute, the barrels glowing as a river of red tracers pour into the clearing. It sounds like tearing canvas. It feels like the whole aircraft is shuddering under the recoil. He sees enemy soldiers dive for cover. He sees others grabbing their wounded. He sees panic, and that is what he needs. He keys the radio. "Canasta 404, we've got you. Stay down, stay hidden." On his 9th pass, 9 passes into 20 guns, Lou hears the worst possible sound. A muffled bang behind him, a shudder, a rising vibration. He checks instruments, oil pressure dropping, heat rising. A round has pierced his engine cowling. He pushes the Skyraider to climb. The engine coughs, stutters. Catches again, barely. If the engine dies, he dies. He knows that. He looks at his fuel gauge, too low for error now. He looks at the valley floor, still crawling with enemy troops. He looks at the smoke, still rising from the survivor's position. And he makes the decision Skyraider pilots become famous for. He stays. He radios the rescue helicopter, the Big Mother H-3 inbound from the coast. Their ETA, 23 minutes. Lou has to hold this valley for 23 minutes. With a wounded engine, with no air cover, with enemy troops multiplying by the minute. This is where every rule says the Skyraider should die. And yet, this is also the moment when its greatest strength reveals itself. Lou still has ammunition. He still has loiter time. He still has the ability to turn inside the valley, to circle where jets cannot, to fly slow enough to spot a rifle barrel in the trees. The helicopter pilots hear the tension in his voice, but they also hear the confidence. "Come in low along the south ridge," Lou says. "I'll keep the north side hot." They trust him, because by now everyone who flies with Lou knows if you go down, he will not leave. Not while he still has fuel, not while he still has wings. If you find this kind of forgotten history as fascinating as we do, we'd be honored if you'd hit that subscribe button. We believe these stories of courage deserve to be told. And by subscribing, you help us ensure they aren't forgotten. The enemy shifts tactics. They stop firing in predictable bursts. They begin creeping, small teams with rifles aiming upward. Lou sees them. He drops again, miniguns blazing, rockets streaking. One pass after another, 18 minutes, 12 minutes, 7 minutes. His engine temperature is deep in the red now. And then through the valley mouth he sees it, the rescue helicopter. Big Mother 72, moving fast, dropping low. Lou cuts across the valley, strafing the northern ridge with his last 20 rounds. Shell casings rattle off the fuselage. Smoke trails behind him. The H-3 flares over the survivor. A hoist drops. Hands grab the downed aviator. He rises into the cabin. Lou makes one final pass, pure intimidation, pure fury. And for the first time in 40 minutes, the guns fall silent. He escorts the H-3 all the way to the coast before turning back to the carrier with an engine barely holding together. He has just done the impossible. The deck crew crowds around Lou Lounsbury's Skyraider the moment it taxis to a halt. They expect bullet holes, and they find them. Dozens, holes through the wings, holes along the fuselage. One round lodged inches from the fuel line. The engine cowling is scorched, cracked, rattling like loose armor. But Lou climbs down the ladder with steady hands. No swagger, no theatrics. Just the quiet breath of a man who accepted death, flew into it, and somehow returned. Word spreads across USS Oriskany in minutes. The Skyraider did it again. Another pilot rescued. Another valley held. Another impossible mission accomplished by a machine North Vietnam swore could not survive. But the war does not slow down. It intensifies. And Lou's reputation grows with it. By late 1966, Lou and VA-152 had completed mission after mission, each more dangerous than the last. Every rescue, every close support run, and every valley penetration reinforced a truth Hanoi did not want to admit. The rusty Skyraider was dominating them. Because the Skyraider didn't fight like a jet. It fought like a shadow, like a predator that refused to leave the battlefield. In October, Lou faces another emergency call, this time from a USAF F-4 crew shot down west of D-1ED3NG H-1EDBI, barely 5 miles from one of the heaviest gun belts in North Vietnam. The area is defended by multiple 23 sites, at least 637 batteries, and one confirmed 57 radar-guided position jets cannot stay. Helicopters cannot enter alone, and time is measured in blood. But the Skyraider, it can buy time. Lou launches with a section of 201s, call signs, Gambler 501 and Gambler 502. He leads. The valley is wider than the one near Vinh but far more lethal. It funnels aircraft into predictable paths. Anti-aircraft teams know exactly where to aim. Lou descends anyway, 5,000 feet. He sees the first puffs of black, 37 bursts reaching for him. 4,000 feet, red tracers begin to arc upward. 3,000 feet. He calls his wingman, "Take high cover, I'll drag them." He pushes the stick forward, 2,000 feet. Now the gunfire becomes a roar. Lou spots the crash site, a scorched crater, smoke curling upward, parachutes tangled in trees. Movement nearby, 2 airmen pinned down by incoming NVA infantry. He does not hesitate. This is not close air support. This is knife-edge flying in a valley built to kill aircraft. Lou rolls left into the first attack run. He chooses his ordnance fast. 1,000-pound bomb low-angle delivery, immediate egress to avoid predicted fire arcs. He descends. 1,500 yards, tracers thicken. A red and white web 1,200 yards. The valley seems to contract around him. 900 yards, he feels the Skyraider tremble. 700 yards, release. The bomb drops perfectly, detonating in a thunderous column that obliterates a 37 nest and sends gun barrels flying. His wingman shouts over comms, "Good hit, good hit." Lou pulls up sharply, too sharply, and his engine coughs, choking on the sudden torque shift, but it recovers. He climbs, circles, drops again. The enemy adapts. They shift fire to the trees where the downed airmen hide. Lou sees muzzle flashes coming closer to their position. He arms rockets. The second run is even lower, dangerously so. Gambler 501 rolling in. He dives. 1,000 yards, he fires. A wall of rockets slams into the advancing infantry, shredding entire sections of jungle and scattering attackers. Smoke rises. Bodies fall, but others keep coming. The Skyraider has endurance but not infinite ammunition. Lou must buy minutes, nothing more. Minutes so the jolly green rescue helicopter can arrive. Minutes that feel like years. On the fourth attack run, Lou hears his wingman shout, "5-7's tracking you," the worst news possible. The 57 gun, the one radar-guided weapon in the valley, has locked onto him. Lou banks, and the sky erupts behind him, black bursts tearing at his 6 o'clock. One burst hits close enough to rattle the cockpit. Another grazes his right wingtip, slicing fabric and metal. Still, he presses the attack. Why? Because if he leaves, even for a minute, the survivors on the ground will be overrun. Lou calls in the jolly green. ETA, 18 minutes. He must survive 18 minutes at treetop level in a gun-saturated kill zone. So he changes tactics. Instead of classic attack runs, he orbit fights, a Skyraider specialty almost no other aircraft can match. He circles tightly inside the valley, forcing gunners to adjust constantly. He fires miniguns on the downstroke of each orbit. He drops grenades and cluster munitions when infantry try to regroup. Tracers lash the air around him. He feels heat along the canopy. He smells cordite. He hears the constant clattering of rounds striking the wings, but his voice on the radio stays calm. Rescue vector is clear, approaching from south is recommended. Behind him, another explosion booms, 57 again. He doesn't flinch. At minute 11, disaster strikes. A 23 round punches through his left wing root, right through the hydraulic line. The controls stiffen immediately. The Skyraider begins pulling left. The stick grows heavy. Turning becomes a battle. Lou knows this feeling. Skyraider pilots live with it. But this time the damage is deep. He cannot keep orbiting like this. He is losing control. He radios his wingman, "Take primary suppression, I'll hit from outside." It is a gamble, a deadly one. The kind that kills pilots. He climbs out of the valley, where radar-guided guns have full targeting arcs, and sets up for a long, shallow re-entry. The fire they send up at him now is immense. Tracers streak past like molten meteors. Burst after burst erupts in front of him. Still he dives. Because the Jolly Green is 2 minutes out. Lou commits fully, one last run, one last sweep. He fires the remaining minigun rounds. He walks the fire across the hillside. He hits 2 machine gun nests. He sprays the tree line where infantry regroup. And at that exact moment, the Jolly Green drops into the valley. The hoist lowers. The pararescue men sprint. They reach the airmen. Lou circles above, fighting stiff controls, bleeding altitude, and uses every ounce of remaining fuel and ammunition to keep the valley quiet. Then comes the call. We have them aboard. Lou exhales for the first time in 20 minutes. He escorts the Jolly Green out. The valley falls silent behind him. Another impossible rescue done. Another rule broken. Another reminder that the obsolete Skyraider is rewriting the war. For weeks after the D-stroke letter 1ED3NGH letter 1EDBI rescue, North Vietnamese commanders attempted to explain away what they had witnessed. They issued new directives. They shifted gun crews. They altered engagement zones. Yet every report circled back to the same uncomfortable truth. The Skyraider was not dying the way it was supposed to. It was not fleeing their guns. It was not intimidated by their MiGs. It was not respecting the boundaries of their defenses. It stayed. It circled, it fought, and it returned again and again, ripping apart every assumption they held about air power. By late 1966, Hanoi began to treat the Skyraider as its most dangerous American aircraft. Not the F-4 Phantom, not the Thunder Chief, not even the B-52. The Skyraider. Why? Because the Skyraider changed battles they believed they had already won. What they didn't know was this. Every time Lou Lounsbury or another A-1 pilot bought minutes for a downed airman, they were also rewriting U.S. search and rescue doctrine. Before Vietnam, air rescue was reactive. Hope someone survived the ejection. Hope someone could locate them. Hope the rescue team could get close. But because of the Skyraider's endurance, the U.S. military realized something profound. For the first time in history, a rescue window could be created rather than merely discovered. This changed everything. Search and rescue operations evolved into coordinated, multi-layer events involving combat air patrol (CAP), suppression of enemy air defenses (SEAD), helicopter insertion teams, forward air controllers, and at the center of it all, the Skyraider, the A-1, was no longer just a close air support platform. It became the shield behind which the rescue force lived or died. Lou's actions, holding valleys alone, suppressing gun nests, dragging fire away from helicopters, were studied, dissected, and taught across multiple wings. Commanders began referring to the Skyraider simply as the Guardian. North Vietnamese commanders were furious. Reports from the field were blunt. The American slow plane cannot be forced away. It is always able to remain over the battlefield. Its fire is continuous. This led to a strategic shift. Entire gun belts were rearranged specifically to counter the A-1. Ambush grids were redesigned. Infantry units received new orders. If you kill the Skyraider, you kill the rescue. But the irony was inescapable. The harder North Vietnam tried to stop the A-1, the more attention it diverted from the jets and bombers. The more resources it assigned to anti-Skyraider operations, the fewer it could allocate to other fronts. Lou's actions, and the actions of men like him, were not just saving air crews. They were absorbing enormous enemy effort, bending Hanoi's planning around a single piston aircraft. On American carriers, attitudes changed as well. At first, jet pilots joked about the Skyraider. They teased its age, its size, its single engine. They called it a flying boxcar or SPAD. But after witnessing what Lou and others were doing, after hearing the jolly green crews say things like, "We won't go in unless the Skyraiders are overhead," the joke stopped. Instead, something else emerged: respect, reliance, even awe. Lou never asked for recognition. He rarely spoke about fear. He simply pre-flighted his aircraft, strapped in, and flew into the places others avoided. And when he returned, often with metal missing or fuel nearly gone, he never exaggerated. He never dramatized. He just said, "They needed time, so we gave them time." By 1967, an astonishing statistic circulated through Pentagon briefing rooms. More than 80% of successful rescues in the Northern Theater occurred when Skyraiders were present. Not jets, not heavy bombers, not escorts, Skyraiders. This forced the Defense Department to revise both procurement and strategy. Plans to phase out the Skyraider were paused. New training pipelines opened. Carrier air wings began advocating for additional A-1 detachments. And Hanoi, watching all of this, realized something that deeply unsettled them. The Americans had found a way to nullify one of their greatest advantages: terrain. Dense jungle, narrow valleys, hidden villages. These features once ensured a downed pilot would be captured or killed within minutes. But the Skyraider made those minutes expandable, stretchable, defensible. Suddenly, North Vietnam faced the most dangerous opponent of all: time. Extended time, created time. Time the Americans exploited ruthlessly. By the time Lou completed his tour, he had flown more than 170 combat sorties, including dozens of rescue support missions. His aircraft had been hit repeatedly. He had flown through more anti-aircraft fire than many pilots saw in entire careers. And yet he survived. But the cost was internal, etched into memory rather than metal. He remembered the smell of burning jungle. He remembered the trembling voices on survival radios. He remembered the sudden silence when a rescue succeeded. And he remembered the far worse silence when one failed. Lou rarely talked about those, but those who served with him knew. He carried every voice, every rescue, every attempt. North Vietnam never understood how pilots like Lou kept returning. They understood bravery. They understood duty. But they could not fathom how a man could fly repeatedly into certain death and do it calmly, methodically, with absolute focus. What they didn't know was this: Lou did not fly for glory. He didn't fly for medals. He didn't fly to dominate the battlefield. He flew for one man at a time, one voice on the radio, one American trapped in the jungle. He flew for the belief, simple, unbreakable, that no pilot should die alone. And that is why the Skyraider dominated. Not because of horsepower, not because of weapons load, not because of design, but because men like Lou gave it purpose. By 1968, a new generation of aircraft entered the war. A-7 Corsairs, modern helicopters, improved FAC platforms. But even as technology advanced, commanders kept the Skyraider in the lineup. They refused to retire it early. They refused to lose the aircraft that had proven again and again that courage is measured not in speed but in endurance. And Lou Lounsbury, now a seasoned pilot, older, quieter, steadier, had become part of the legend that shaped this decision. His mission spread by word of mouth, carrier to carrier, squadron to squadron, generation to generation. Young pilots learned his name before they learned their call signs. The Skyraider remained over Vietnam longer than anyone predicted, longer than planners expected, longer than jets believed necessary, and far longer than North Vietnam ever imagined possible. But that endurance of machine and man left a legacy that stretched far beyond any single rescue, far beyond Lou Lounsbury, far beyond the war itself. Now we leave the battlefield and turn to the final act, what it all meant, what it changed, and why it matters today. When Lou Lounsbury finally rotated home, he was not the same young man who had stepped onto the deck of USS Oriskany months earlier. He carried scars no X-ray could find, memories no metal could capture, and gratitude from men who survived only because a Skyraider stayed overhead long enough to keep death at bay. Many of those men later wrote letters. Some delivered them in person. Others sent them years after the war, but all said a version of the same sentence: "I lived because you stayed." It is difficult for modern audiences to understand what that means. In a jet war, seconds matter. In a rescue, minutes matter. But the Skyraider gave something utterly extraordinary: hours. Hours of protection, hours of fire support, hours of hope. And hope over the jungles of North Vietnam was often the rarest thing of all. Lou was one of dozens of Skyraider pilots who made that hope real. Men like Lt. Dieter Dengler, whose capture and escape became legend match. Bernard Fisher, Medal of Honor recipient Lt. CMDR. Thomas Patton, who flew 260 A-1 missions CDR. Cliff Strickland, known for daring rescue covers, but Lou's story, his calm, foxhole-level presence in the cockpit, captured the soul of the Skyraider better than most. Because he embodied what the mission required: not fearlessness but discipline, not aggression but endurance, not speed but certainty. He came home quietly like so many veterans, started a family, built a life, rarely spoke of the war unless someone asked. And even then, he talked more about the men he saved than the danger he faced. Years later, in an interview, he said something that defines the entire Skyraider experience: "We didn't fly for missions, we flew for people." That is the distilled truth. That is why the Skyraider mattered. That is why North Vietnam stopped laughing. The Skyraider's performance changed American doctrine in 3 decisive ways. 1. Close air support reimagined commanders discovered that slow, heavily armed aircraft with long loiter times could outperform faster jets in complex environments. This directly influenced the creation of the 10 Thunderbolt II, which inherited the Skyraider's philosophy: stay, endure, protect. 2. Search and rescue. As a battlefield system before the Skyraider, combat rescue was opportunistic. After the Skyraider, it became coordinated and deliberate. Every modern CSAR doctrine, from Afghanistan to Iraq, traces its lineage to the A-1's protective envelope. 3. Psychological warfare, unintended but profound. The Skyraider's persistence broke enemy morale. Hanoi's commanders eventually warned units not to engage down pilots until the slow American aircraft were forced away. But they were never forced away. Not by guns, not by MiGs, not by terrain. This shift rippled across the war and into the future. Skyraider pilots age like warriors always do, quietly, privately, with fewer of them each year. Lou Lounsbury lived a long life. He passed on his skills to younger aviators. He told stories only when necessary. He never called himself a hero, but the men he saved did. Many became the last surviving members of their flight crews. Many told their children and grandchildren about a single sound that meant salvation: the deep, propeller-driven growl of a Skyraider descending through jungle mist. Decades after the war, at reunions and ceremonies, veterans still describe the same sensation. The moment they realized an A-1 was overhead, it sounded like home. Today, we live in a world where technology changes rapidly, where speed and stealth dominate headlines. But the Skyraider teaches a different lesson, a timeless one. Technology matters, but people matter more. A jet cannot choose to stay when logic says run. A missile cannot decide to protect one life at the cost of risking its own. A machine cannot feel duty, but a pilot can, and Lou did. The Skyraider is a symbol not of nostalgia, not of outdated engineering, but of the extraordinary things ordinary people can do when the mission is simple and unbreakable. Leave no one behind. That is why we tell this story, because it reminds us that what seems obsolete can still be powerful, that what others mock can still be deadly. And that bravery often comes from the most unexpected places, like a single-engine attack aircraft built in the final months of World War II. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm this piece of history is worth remembering. We're dedicated to rescuing these forgotten stories from the archives. If you want to join us on this mission, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your city or state and tell us if someone in your family served. And finally, thank you for ensuring that LT, JG, Thomas Lou Lounsbury, and the more than 200 Skyraider pilots who risked their lives to save others do not disappear into silence. They deserve to be remembered.